The Dallas Stars finished second in the Central Division, 25-26 season, before falling 6 games in the opening round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs to the Minnesota Wild. Neil, the expectation for this team is always high. And in the last 5 seasons, since the resumption of the 82-game schedule, they've averaged 107.4 points. They've had 100-point seasons the last 4 years, finished first or second in the Central in each of those. But this is a team that is now become a perennial bridesmaid. Prior to this season, they had 3 straight trips to the Western Conference Final, losing to the Vegas Golden Knights 2023 and the Edmonton Oilers in 24 and 25. But still, there were high expectations under Glen Gulutzan 2.0, and in between his 2 eras behind the bench, we saw Lindy Ruff, Ken Hitchcock, Jim Montgomery, Rick Bowness, and Peter DeBoer. So pretty big shoes to fill in trying to get this team to the next level and make the Stanley Cup Final. And of course, that didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. And this is a division that's probably the most powerful division in the league, with the 3 big shots this year and Winnipeg last year, who was right up there. It's a tough division to play in. It's a tough division to get anywhere. And with the current playoff format, if you end in second or third in the Central, boy, you're going to play a tough opponent in the first round, because it's going to be a team that has had a very good year.
This is a club, though, that we have seen over the years. When they are good, they look unbeatable. And when they're bad, they don't look like they could beat anybody. And this is something that we saw during the course of this regular season, starting on November 8th. They had a string of 14-1-2. And then that was followed soon after by a 2-6-4 slide, followed by a 14-0-1 run that included a 10-game winning streak. And then they had a 3-6-2 slide before winning their last 5 of the regular season. So it almost fits the profile of this team that you're not sure what you're going to get by the time you get to the playoffs, because of what we see during not only this regular season, but years prior.
And, you know, it's befuddling because players come and players go. You named off all the head coaches they've had, from Lindy Ruff to Hitchcock to Jim Montgomery, Rick Bowness and Peter DeBoer, and now Glen Gulutzan. They're all good men. And as I said, players come and players go. So these haven't all been the same players. This isn't a college team where you've got all the same guys for 4 years. So it's really befuddling what happens. But I think the only way you can look at what's happened is to go and put it under the microscope for each year, and not just clump 4 or 5 years together and say, well, that's the Dallas Stars.
In 2024, they had a 2-1 lead against Edmonton in the conference final, then lost the last 3 games, scoring 4 goals. In 25, they beat Colorado and Winnipeg. They won the first game against Edmonton and then scored only 5 goals and losing the next 4. In their recently completed opening round against Minnesota, which was an opponent that they had already known for 3 or 4 months, they had a 2-1 series lead, and a lead late in Game 4, got tied, and then wound up losing. But when we look at this lineup also, once you get past Jason Robertson and Wyatt Johnston, each of which scored 45 goals this season, the next highest goal scorer on the team was Mikko Rantanen. And it just came out that Rantanen indeed suffered a torn MCL during the Olympics. He did return for the final 10 games of the regular season, but he really wasn't the same player after that. And of course, you know, if you're Bill Guerin of the Minnesota Wild, this was your opponent. But the bigger picture here, this was another team that got hurt by an injury at the Olympics.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Kevin Fiala of the Los Angeles Kings was the most noteworthy injury because his season was finished when he got hurt in the Olympics. None of us knew about Rantanen, for good reason, because the Dallas Stars didn't want anybody to know. But I remember talking to Glen Gulutzan in the hallway at UBS Arena And he told me that Rantanen was coming back on Saturday, and he said he'll make a big difference. He makes a big difference to our lineup. But now we find out, of course, that he wasn't 100%.
And other injuries that the team had to deal with some of their stronger offensive players. Tyler Seguin, torn ACL on December 2nd. He was done for the year. And Roope Hintz played only one game after the Olympics. He actually took ill while in Milan Cortina, but tore a hamstring right after he got back in the first game upon returning. So he was done. And when you take those players out of your offense and you're trying to go into a playoff series with a team as deep as Minnesota, it's tough sledding. And then turns out Miro Heiskanen was injured. Radek Faksa was injured. Michael Bunting also played hurt during the opening round. And, of course, we remember defenseman Nils Lundkvist taking that skate to the face. So you put all that together, and look, everybody's got injuries. And we will say that with numerous teams as we go through spring cleanings. But when you look at the quality of these players and the roles that they play, it's not hard to see why this was so difficult for them to get past the first round this year. And, of course, they did.
But again, Vic, I'm going to come back over and over again to the playoff format because this is the strongest division in the league. The three teams that are 1, 2, 3 in the Central are powerhouses, and somebody's got to lose. And, you know, while everybody may have injuries, had Dallas played in the 1-8-2-7 type scenario, they would have got a far different opponent than Minnesota. Having said that, that isn't the way the playoff format is. You know what? That's not the playoff format. The format is the format, and they've known for a long time they were going to get Minnesota. It's just too bad for Jim Nill, Glen Gulutzan, and the players that they had so many guys hurt.
Jim Nill has won General Manager of the Year for each of the last 3 seasons, and let's take a look at the work ahead that he has. The team has 5 picks in the first round of the 2026 draft. They have none in the first or third rounds, and that was part of acquiring Rantanen from Carolina last year. They have none in the fourth round as part of acquiring Chris Tanev from New Jersey in 2024. But they did get this pick back in the 7th round when they sent Tanev to Toronto 4 months later. They are actually over the projected cap space by $2.9 million right now, but of course the reset coming on July 1st, and that salary cap is going to raise by $8.5 million. Their UFAs, Captain Jamie Benn, who signed a 1-year deal, come back to the team for this past season. Michael Bunting, who we mentioned before, Adam Erne, and Nathan Bastian up front. And the defense, Alex Petrovic and Kyle Capobianco. And their RFAs, and here's the big one, Jason Robertson, along with Maverick Bourque and R2 Hutu. But let's talk about Robertson here because he has been their guy. With no disrespect to Wyatt Johnston, he's the guy. And he's going to make a truckload of money.
He will, and in today's game he should. He is a pure goal scorer, natural goal scorer. Unbelievable that he's out of California, you know, grew up in California. First player ever to play in the NHL with a Filipino parent. Brother plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We know all this stuff. But he's just a magnificent goal scorer. He's a great offensive threat. And Jim Nill's going to have to get his pencil out, that's for sure.
How do you look at this team? Because obviously Johnston and Robertson, both very young players. But a lot of guys on this team starting to get up into their 30s. And we've said it with so many clubs. We'll say it with Edmonton next week, that you only get so many kicks at the can before you've got to start to retool your team. I don't think Dallas is there yet. But this is certainly a year where Jim Nill has to upgrade, has to fill in this team a little bit more, and let's see what this results in.
And let's see what's in the pipeline and what Jim Nill's going to do with that pipeline, because he's got 2 players that are very long in the tooth. I like them both, but Jamie Benn, the captain, and Tyler Seguin are getting near the end here. And will he decide not to re-sign Jamie Benn and go with a different captain, go with a different veteran, Jamie Benn, by the way, one of the very few players that's still grandfathered into the no visor rule and has been a magnificent captain for them. And if you talk to anybody, you get nothing but respect for Jamie Benn, the way he's played and the leader that he is. But they're still going to have to make a decision at some point as to whether to continue on with him or whether to cut bait.